Hiya folks, Gord Pyzer here for Outdoor Canada magazine, and I'm actually with a good friend of mine, Rob Sprange, and Rob's the service manager here at Winnipeg Sport and Leisure, the satellite store in Kenora. And Robbie, it's that sad time of year again, isn't it?
It is. We're starting to put boats away and the weather's turning, but, look forward to ice fishing season, right?
Well, I love my boat. I love my Kingfisher. I love being out as much in the open water as ice. And what we want to talk about today, there's some real do's and don'ts about when you store your boat. And you actually surprised me the other day when we were chatting about batteries.
Yeah.
Because I can remember when they used to say, don't even put your battery on concrete.
Right.
But now you're telling me you can actually store your battery in the boat.
That's what I'm told by my guys at the shop here. As long as everything's charged up and disconnected, and you get a full charge before winter, you're good to go for the winter. And basically what I always tell customers is if it doesn't make it through the winter, it probably wasn't a good battery anyway, so you're near the end anyway.
Yeah.
So good test.
The key then is charging it up before you store it. And the real key, the other key you told me was disconnecting it from the positive charge, eh?
Absolutely. Your cranking battery you want to make sure is disconnected at the back of the boat. And as for the trolling motor batteries, actually just disconnecting the trolling motor itself from your plug at the front of the boat basically terminates all the connections and is just like disconnecting it from the battery itself, so you don't have to figure out where all those wires go in the spring.
Yeah. Now another do when you're storing your boat, at least I think it is, you should always fill the gas tank up full, and because there's so much ethanol added to the gas these days, put a conditioner, a fuel, something that prevents fuel separation?
Absolutely, Gord. You want to make sure, a full tank is definitely the best case scenario because then you're not dealing with air in the tank reacting with the fuel over the winter. And as for ethanol, there's all sorts of products out there now that'll treat the ethanol to make sure your fuel doesn't degenerate over the winter. So we basically tell everybody to make sure on their last run out on the lake to dump a full tank of stabilizer in, enough to treat the full tank of fuel that you're running, and that'll condition it for the winter.
Yeah. Now, something else, Robbie, you were telling me about, and I didn't know this. I like to take my boat in, and I like to take it to the car wash, and then I'll hose it all down, I'll spray the outside, and one of the things I like to do is actually spray the carpet to get all the fish slime and clean it up. But now, shrink wrapping's so popular with boats, you got to be careful cleaning your boat too soon or not drying it out before you take it in for the shrink wrap?
Exactly, yeah. It seems to me more and more our business is growing with wrapping boats outside of our actual storage boats, and got to be very careful with how wet the boat is when it comes in. For our own stock, we actually bring them in overnight and dry them, make sure that everything's dry, the covers are dry and the carpet's dry. Otherwise, you'll get that greenhouse effect inside the boat where you get mold and mildew in the spring when the sun comes out and things start heating up.
So it's great in the wintertime, everything's frozen, no worries, but come those nice early spring days, April, maybe even into May, and you get the heat coming down. If your boat was wet, you get mold growing on the seats, I guess.
Exactly. Anything that's wet, whether it's the covers or anything like that, it'll certainly cause that. First thing in the spring when you get those hot temperatures and it beats through the shrink wrap, and usually everything's well vented, but that still doesn't quite do enough to get that moisture out of there. So it's one thing that we will do here if a boat is really wet and we have no choice is to put a moisture pack in that actually absorbs the moisture over the season.
Oh, wow,
when you pull that out in the spring, it's actually full of water. So,
yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Talking about water, again, one of the things that you need to be concerned about, or boaters need to be concerned about, is draining the bilge area and making sure water gets out of your live well pumps and your bilge pumps too, eh? You
betcha. The best thing that we do in the shop here is drain everything completely, get all the water out of it, and run all the pumps dry, and then just splash some RV plumbing antifreeze in there just to be double sure that you're not leaving any water in any of the cavities that might freeze and pop over the winter, because the last thing you want to do in the spring is have to replace live well pumps. So
Yeah.
$100 a pop plus.
So Robbie, would you pour the antifreeze right into your live well and then
Exactly.
hit the recirc button?
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, just run it through it, cycle it through, and wait till it comes out the drain, and you know that you've got it.
And in fact, you could capture it and then put it in your bilge and just
That's right.
keep,
Yeah, that would work too, for sure.
Yeah. So is there anything we've missed?
Well, one of the really important things, especially on an outboard motor, is to check your gear oil. You always want to make sure there's no water in there, and the telltale there is when you crack that screw to make sure that the fluid's not milky at all. If it's milky, that means you've got a leak in your prop shaft seals. Ooh. And the cause of that could easily be fishing line. So you always want to remove that prop, make sure that you don't have fishing line around there, which could pop the seals. And again, over the winter, if there's water in there, it'll freeze and do some damage to the gear case. So,
in fact, now's the time when you bring your boat in for storage. Now's the time to get the lower unit, the oil changed, your lube oil changed. Now's the time to do all that. So when spring arrives, you drive into the dealership, you pick up your boat, you take the shrink wrap off, you put it in the water, and away you go with no worries, eh?
Absolutely. No, this is the best time of the year to do a full servicing on 4-stroke outboards. We suggest you do the engine oil and filter, get clean oil there for the winter, and then the gear oil, obviously you want to change that. Whether it's an outboard or an inboard, you want to make sure that everything's done in the spring, and then or in the fall, excuse me, and then in the spring everything's ready to go. Yeah. Which is really the best way to have it, for sure.
Well, there you have it, folks, from the expert. And let me tell you, this guy goes through hundreds and hundreds of boats, servicing them and getting them ready for the winter and the spring. This is the place. If you're anywhere in Northwest Ontario, you need to come to Winnipeg Sport and Leisure here in Kenora. I heard at one time Kenora has the highest percentage of boat ownership of anywhere on earth. And this guy probably looks after most of those boats. So take it from the expert when you're putting your boat to bed this year. It's a sad, sad time. But when you put it to bed the right way, and you'll have no worries come next spring. Robbie, thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Gord. It was my pleasure.